Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel. Today we are in the outdoor kitchen. Over the next couple of weeks we're going to give this outdoor kitchen a workout. I am in the middle of a massive freezer clean out, getting ready for chickens to come in a couple of weeks. We've got 20 meat chickens coming. I'm going to be canning a lot of them, but I'm also going to be making a lot of broth with the carcasses, and also going to be freezing some individual breasts and basically breaking down the chickens to whatever size and type of meat that we want. So I need room in my freezer. I have a lot of elk left. I have lamb that's in there yet, and I have a lot of venison that we had left over. We can most of our venison, but I do save a lot of my scraps for the cats, and that's the stuff that's just maybe not quite what we want to eat, but it's too good to throw away. So our goal is to be the best stewards of what we've been given and to use up everything as much as possible. So I save bits of scraps and stuff, and then I make my own cat food with it. Now, when I make cat food, I make it as a treat. It's a small amount of wet food for them in the morning. They get unlimited kibble throughout the day, so they get all the nutrients that they want. So if anybody's going to say that I'm not giving them the full nutrients in this wet cat food, yeah, they're probably right. But cats were created to be meat eaters, and that's what this mostly consists of, is meat. I do have a bag of a little bit of almost freezer burnt sweet potatoes that I'm going to throw in there as well, because cats also need fiber. It's good for the digestive system and it's good for them. I am not putting any grains in this cat food. I do not like grain-fed pets. Cats were not meant to eat any grains, and honestly, any grains that they eat makes the litter box stink. And you feed cats grain-free and they don't stink as bad. A litter box is going to stink, but it's not as bad. So it is also healthier for them. So as I get ready, I've got a bowl of scraps here. It's mostly venison, and there's some chicken gizzards in here, and there's also some, what else did I stick in there? I was doing a freezer clean out, so I was pulling everything out of there that I've been saving for them. I think it's the chicken gizzards and venison and, oh, some squirrel that didn't get eaten from last year that really should be eaten, and I know they'll enjoy that. So what I'm going to do is, I got a couple pots here. I got some water in here already. I'm probably going to have to get a little bit more. I'm going to just boil all of this down and then pull the bones out if there's any bones in anything, and then let it cool. Use the broth and the meat without the bones in it and put it through the food processor and kind of make a slurry, and that's the way they like it best. So there is a little bit of fat left on some of these gizzards and stuff. I'm going to cut these up into some smaller pieces because some of these are just really big, and I want to be able to just kind of cut these down now and make it easier for the food processor in the end. Probably not going to add the sweet potatoes until a little bit later, until these are almost done cooking, because they're already in really small pieces and I don't want them to break down into nothing. They're already going to get pureed up. So I'm just going to start cutting up some of this meat. And they're good chunks of boneless venison. It's just wasn't maybe the best quality meat either for canning or for grinding. We find that we don't grind a lot of our venison anymore because we like it canned so much that we don't grind a lot of it. And I've got so much ground elk in the freezer right now that I don't need any. I'm not sure how these chicken gizzards are going to boil, if they're going to get really tough. I've never eaten a gizzard. I know people love them, but I just can't get myself to do it. But they're going through the food processor anyway. And you can add whatever you want in here. You can add eggs if you got extra eggs. I don't have any extra eggs right now, so I'm not going to add that. It's just basically going to be meat and sweet potatoes. Cat food has gotten so expensive. I used to just get a little can of cat food and split it between the two cats, and just as a little treat in the morning. And cat food has gotten so expensive that I started just giving them a little jar of sardines or something from the dollar store as a little treat. And then I made some cat food out of the venison one year, and it actually turned out really well. And they loved it so much that I wish I had made some more. So I saved all this from last year, but I've been working my way through all of the elk liver that I got. They asked me if I wanted the liver, and I don't eat liver. And I said no, but actually I changed my mind and says, yeah, I do want it. I want to bring it home to my cats. And so they packaged it up in really small packages for the cats. and they've been eating that for a while. And my father-in-law didn't want his liver either, so I ended up with 2 large elk livers and then the 2 hearts. And so they've been kind of working their way through that stuff. And then people give me chicken livers and chicken gizzards from our chicken butchering from last year. I still got a bunch of those. So I really have a lot to deal with in that freezer, and it's got to get out of there. It's going to get freezer burnt, and it won't even be good for the cats. So I want to get this out of there. Interesting fact though, we saved a deer liver last year for the cats. They wouldn't eat it. Took one sniff of it, they didn't like it. And I'm wondering if that's maybe because there was a little bit of stomach content that got onto the liver when we were cleaning it. We cleaned it off really well, but they didn't like that for some reason. So I have an interesting fact. So I'm just going to add all of this to the boil, into the water here. I don't know if I'm going to need more than 1 pan or not. Maybe won't need more than 1. But I thought I'd also kind of tell you a little bit of history as to how we ended up with these 2 cats. We weren't looking for either one of them, and we certainly weren't looking to have a pet because we were traveling back and forth to Mexico, and we were kind of 6 months there, 6 months here for a while, and maybe 5 months there and a little longer here, and every year was different. And we were doing some missionary support down there, and one year we were going to be there a lot longer. Our son was doing his senior year of high school there, and so I went down with him a little bit earlier than Dan. Dan had to finish up his work contract, so he had 2 more months of doing that. And so he came down, got us settled, and so my son and I were there for 2 extra months for him to get started in school. And during that time, our friends like to go out running in the morning, and they like to go out early before it got hot. And little kitten followed her home one day. She called me up and says, "Hey, you need a cat." And I says, "No, I don't need a cat. The last thing I want is a cat in Mexico. I don't want to get attached to something and then have to get rid of it when we go home." And we were going to be there for about 9 months at that time. And I said, "No cat." She said, "Yeah, but you need a cat." I said, "What am I going to do with it when I go home? I can't keep taking a cat back and forth." And I said, "Well, we'll watch it while you're gone. We'll take it while you're gone, and you'll take him to your house whenever you come back." And we did that for a couple of years. And I said, "Okay, we'll take the cat." So we did that for a couple of years, and I mean, he traveled actually really well between the 2 houses. We didn't live that far apart when we were in Mexico anyway. But first thing I did when we got off the plane is we went to a taco stand and then went to their house, and I got my cat. Because by the time we went home 9 months later, of course, he was wrapped around our hearts, and I love the little guy. And he's quite a handsome cat right now. I'm talking about Piggy. But he was an ugly kitten. Oh, is he ugly? Piggy's actually his nickname. His full name is actually Templeton, because if a cat could look like the worst, ugliest rat possible, that's what this cat looked like. He was probably 8-10 weeks old at the time, and it was the ugliest kitten I've ever seen. And I love cats. I think all kittens are cute, but this was an ugly cat. First thing I did before I even let him into my house, because he was all mangy and yucky looking, he was obviously a street cat, but kind of lovable. He really liked people. So I gave him a bath, and then I allowed him in my house, and then he grew and just kind of fell in love with him. But Dan calls him Piggy because it's really hard to be a cat in Mexico during the dry season and keep yourself clean. It's dusty and dry. So every time you pet him, your hand would get all dirty and dusty. It's like, man, you're a pig. It's not his fault. He was just dusty. During the rainy season was the only time he was ever clean. It's because everything else got nice and green and the dust finally settled down a little bit. So then he's had quite a life. He grew up his first couple years chasing lizards and cockroaches. He'd put cockroaches in people's shoes. We're talking giant Mexican cockroaches, the really, really big ones. He loved those things. When we brought him back to the U.S., my daughter had gotten one of those little plastic bags in Halloween season of those cockroaches, little plastic cockroaches that you can buy. And those were his favorite toys. He absolutely loved them. I think it made him feel like home. And lizards. He would chase lizards, and he'd get those little gummy lizards. They call them huichos in Mexico. I don't know what the English word is for them. But they look like little gummy lizards, and he would chase those and catch them and play with them, and I'd find them dried up underneath my couch every time I pulled the couch out to sweep under there. So the first time he actually saw a furry creature, when we brought him here, it was hilarious. So he had quite the life in Mexico. He actually got run over by something. We think it was a food cart or some sort of bicycle. We call it the Great Tamale Cart Incident. It really busted him up. We got him to a vet down there, and we thought one of his legs was broken. He says, no, it's just dislocated. So we got the leg fixed, and then a couple days later, the vet called me and says, he's just still not standing on that other leg. He said, so we x-rayed it, and that leg's broken. So we had a broken leg and a dislocated leg on the backside. So 2 surgeries later. And I gotta say that vet bills in Mexico are a whole lot cheaper than they are in the US. He had 2 leg surgeries down there for half the price of what we paid when these 2 cats got attacked by a feral tomcat here. And both of them needed abscesses lanced. But he didn't heal correctly. He was in what they call an external fixator cast, which is little pins and stuff that go into the bone. And he had that on for like 8-10 weeks. And the broken leg healed pretty well. The dislocated leg never really healed well. So he sits really funny. He's crooked. He'll never be quite right. But he has managed to overcome. He's down here. He can smell all his meat right now. And it took him probably about 2 years before he was able to actually jump again or to climb up on the couch. He would basically climb his way up with his front legs because he couldn't put any weight on those back legs to actually get himself up. So, and then one day we decided that when our time in Mexico was slowing down a little bit, it was time to bring him home. So I had loved him to the point where I didn't want to give him up anymore. So I talked to Dan and I said, I really want to bring him home. And so we did. So that is about half of a pot. So there's enough water in there to get that going. This is going to make quite a bit of food for them. So we brought him home on the airplane. I don't think he liked it very well. Get this going on boil. Get that boiling. And then I will probably add some more water to that. And I want a nice, really moist kind of food because that's going to be the best for them. It's a good way to get water in them, and they really, really love this food. So we're going to let this come to a boil. I might add just a little bit of salt to it just for some minerals. I use Redmond's Real Salt, so it's got some really good minerals in it. I won't put anything else in it. No pepper. Our cats will not eat anything with pepper on it, so I don't even want to even go there. So that's the story of Piggy. And then we got Lucy. She found us. We were sitting in our house one night when it was really cold out. It was like a blizzardy kind of night out, and we heard a cat meowing outside, and I thought, oh, Piggy got outside. And I looked at no, he's sleeping at my feet. He's not meowing. Something's out there. And I went outside with a flashlight because it was dark, and I said, here, kitty, kitty. And this little cat, this beautiful little calico, peeks her head out from underneath our porch. And I thought, oh, aren't you a really pretty little kitty? And then she popped all the way out, and I says, oh, aren't you a really pregnant little kitty? So I picked her up. It was so cold and blizzardy out that night, and so we put her on our front porch, and I gave her some food. She was pregnant. She was obviously starving. She wolfed it down. We let her stay on the porch for a couple of days, and it was obvious that she was a drop-off. We live on an intersection of 2 seasonal roads, and somebody probably dumped her off. And we came to that conclusion when we saw her feet. The ends of her front feet were all bloody, where someone had removed her claws, or at least kind of ground them down to the stumps of the claws. They've all since grown back. She's done really well. She's got all her claws back. She's a ferocious hunter. And so we decided to keep her for a little while and thought, well, she can have her kittens with us. We'll find some homes for them. We don't need to overload the animal shelters anymore by bringing them a cat that's got to stay there for 6 to 8 weeks with her kittens. And So that we'll feed her for a while. We'll find some homes for the cats, and then we'll find a home for her. And anyways, over those few weeks of getting to know her, she was really a sweet cat. And then she had her kittens. We found homes for all the kittens. They were super, super cute. There were 4 of them. And when it came down to getting rid of her afterwards, it's like, we can't do this. She is such a sweet cat. Piggy didn't really care for her all that well, but he was starting to warm up to her a little bit. So we decided to keep her, and we're glad that we did. She's a sweetheart of a cat. First thing we did was get her neutered, and trying to be responsible pet owners when it comes to that. So we got that taken care of, and yeah, she's been with us now for about 2.5 years. So both of our cats are rescues, not in the sense that you would actually go out and find a cat to rescue, but they kind of found us. So they definitely earn their keep around here and keep the rodent population under control. And it's good to have cats on a homestead. Yes, they're both spoiled. Yes, I make premium food for them out of meat scraps and that kind of stuff, but it keeps them healthy, keeps them happy, and that's the way that we'd like to treat our animals. We don't have dogs because we work really long hours, and it just doesn't make sense for us to have a dog right now. So cats are where it's at for us. So we got lots of stuff coming up. I have to get this freezer cleaned out because of the chickens, and also because it's coming to fall season. I've got so much canning that I got to do over the next few months when it comes to the garden. My garden progress, it's slow. It's starting to turn around a little bit. I think my cabbages are complete goners. I don't think I'm going to get any cabbage this year, so I'm not going to be making any sauerkraut or canning any coleslaw or anything. And if I do, I'm going to have to just buy the cabbage. Maybe I'll go to the farmer's market and get some good homegrown cabbage from them. So I'm going to also be canning some lamb stew over the next couple of weeks. I've got a lot of lamb that's cut up into, when we get our lambs, we get mostly ground, some chops, packaged in really small packages, and then a lot of stew meat. I don't get the big leg of lambs because I'm really the only one that eats the lamb, and I use that mostly as a substitute for beef since I can't eat beef. Dan likes the steaks, and whenever we do steaks on the grill, if I'm going to have one also, I'll throw the lamb chops on and he'll eat a regular steak. So I'm going to can up a lot of the stew meat. That's all I make it with it anyway, so I thought might as well just can the stew and have it ready to go, because frozen in my freezer is just more time that I gotta take to actually make that. So I'm going to be getting rid of the lamb in the freezer. Anything that's boneless is going to be going into canned. I'm going to take some of the elk that we have also, and we found that some of the elk, the cuts that we got, seem to be a little bit tough. You can cook it and you can pound it out, and it's pretty good, but it does take some work to get it a little bit more tender. And I thought if I pressure cooked it, I bet it would be really good. We love the venison that way. I don't know why we wouldn't like the elk that way. So I'm going to be thawing out, and that's going to be a big job, is just thawing out everything and getting it ready to go, and then getting it all canned once it's thawed out, because I'm not going to be throwing it back in the freezer at that point. So that's going to make some room to get all that elk out of the freezer, get the lamb out of there. And then basically all we'll be left with is some ground venison, some ground elk, and the ground lamb. And that will make room for the whole chickens that I want to put in the freezer. So a lot of canning. I'm going to be spending a lot of time out here in this outdoor kitchen, and that's kind of why we were pushing to get this done and get this table going, because this table is going to be really nice for canning and butchering chickens. We're going to butcher them elsewhere, but I'm going to be able to just put the chickens here. I like to break them up into sections. I like to have the meat just cut off all the bones, and then just make a good bone broth out of all of them. And I cook that out here for a long time, and then I pressure cook that, or yeah, pressure can that. So lots to get ready for. And it's hot out here today. I think it's projected to be 87, 88 or something today. And I don't mind the heat so much, but it is so humid out here right now. I am just dripping with sweat. So good thing that we have the outdoor kitchen, because I do not want to bring any of this heat inside the house. So I'm going to go inside, do my dishes while this is cooking out here. It's probably going to take at least an hour or two to cook all that meat. And then I'll throw the sweet potatoes in, get those cooked down a little bit. And then once the meat is cooled, I'll take you into the kitchen and show you how I grind it up and then how I package it. Lucy's saying, I know where that smell is coming from. It's over here somewhere. All right, these have been cooking for about an hour. It's like everything's getting pretty well cooked. It's quite a bit of broth in there yet, so I'm going to add the sweet potatoes. So kind of a big frozen chunk. That's going to cool my water off a little bit. And I know my cats will eat this because their main dry food is salmon and sweet potato. So I know they like the sweet potatoes. So I'm going to let this cook for just a little bit more until these sweet potatoes are cooked through and the meat's just a little bit more tender. I want it a little bit more like fall off the bone kind of tender, just so it's easier to grind up in the food processor. And then we're going to take it inside, grind her up, and I'm going to give you a quick channel update while we're packaging this up. Okay, this has been cooking for a couple hours now. Time to shut it off, and I'm going to bring it in and let it cool down. And then we're going to get this through the food processor. So the cat food is inside cooling down. I put the pot in a sink full of cold water to kind of speed that up just a little bit. But while that's cooling off, I wanted to give you guys a quick channel update and what we've got going on for this summer and fall. Dan is working on getting me some new shelves in my kitchen. We're going to kind of redo how the pantry and the root cellar work together. I'm going to completely empty out my pantry that's in the house and reorganize it and kind of take stock of what I need to order for a bulk order of dry goods. I know I'm getting low on something, so I need to do that. I don't do it very often. It's kind of hard for me to get orders here because we're so hidden, which is fine. That's why we live here, but it is a little hard to get orders. But I usually have it sent to a friend, and so I only do it just every now and then. So I'm going to be cleaning that out and kind of taking some things out of the root cellar that stay down in there and get them into the house, and then kind of condense some things. And it's going to be a big project, so it's going to take a couple of days to do that. I've got canning season coming up. I got a lot of canning to do. A lot of my canning is delayed because my garden is so far behind because of the deer. I'm normally canning beans at this time, and my beans are only about this tall, so those are going to be at least a month yet before I have any beans, but they're probably going to be showing up right about the time all my tomatoes are ready. So it is what it is. It's going to be a busy canning season, and I'm just thankful that I'm going to get anything out of that garden this year. So the garden is coming back. It's doing well. I think my cabbages are goners. I really don't think I'm going to get any cabbage this year, which is sad because I canned coleslaw last year for the first time and it was so good. And I really wanted to do that again this year, but we might have to wait, or I'm just have to get some at the farmer's market and just can it from there. The pizza oven and pizza bread oven that we want to build in the outdoor kitchen, we're kind of planning that out, and that is going to be a project that is going to be a learning process for both of us, and it sounds fun. Dan really wants to learn how to lay some brick, and we think that that would be a really neat addition to this outdoor kitchen. So we've got that going on. We got some camping trips this fall. We both have 2 10-day stretches off of work this fall. One's in September and one's again in October. The first one in September, we're going to be doing a lot of camping around the UP and just some traveling around, all rustic campgrounds, all campfire cooking, that kind of stuff, and we'll probably take you guys with us on that. That will be the first trip. The second 10 days we'll probably kind of stay in one spot and just stay on the eastern side of the UP and do a lot of fishing on the St. Mary's River. Fall is our best walleye time up there. We've upgraded our boat this year, so we feel like we can go a little bit further away, and it's going to be a little bit safer. The St. Mary's River can be quite rough at times, and those of you that don't know Michigan very well, or the eastern UP, the St. Mary's River connects Lake Superior to Lake Huron, so it is part of the Great Lakes water system, and so it can get pretty rough, and we really want to get some fish in the freezer this year. So the goal is for fall walleye fishing. We usually get into a lot of pike when we're walleye fishing, and I would love to be able to pickle some pike. I haven't found a really good recipe that I like yet, so anybody out there pickles fish and you got a really good recipe, let me know. Most of them have a lot of sugar in it, and I just don't want that. It just doesn't seem like it should be a sweet thing to me, so I'd like something that's a little bit more savory without being sweet. So we're going to do that. So that will be in October. We've also got a couple family weddings this fall. This is going to be so busy this year. We've got our nephew is getting married in September, and I'm making the cake for their wedding, and then our daughter is getting married in October. So that's going to be a big deal as well. So lots going on. We've got our fall foraging that we normally do, the honey mushrooms, some of our favorite mushrooms. They've been hit or miss the last couple of years. It really depends on weather and rain. Last year we didn't get any. The year before we got quite a few. So that's on the horizon. And then hopefully, depending on what this winter is like, we'd like to get back into some ice fishing. We've been saying that for the last couple of years that we want to get back into ice fishing. We were really big into it before we had kids. We used to just go out for a whole entire day and just go ice fishing and catch tons of perch, and we always had a lot of fun with it. But the last few years we just haven't had any safe ice up here in northern Michigan. We've had so many people go into the water this year, or the last couple of years, that it's just really turned us off from ice fishing. So hopefully this year we can really get back into the ice fishing. So lots of little stuff. I think most of our building projects are done for right now. We're going to do just like the pizza oven, that kind of stuff. A lot of little projects, and just stuff to make us more self-sufficient and being able to enjoy some of the things that we already have here. Also in August, Dan's going to be spending quite a bit of time downstate with our son. He is starting his house build. They are building just a regular on-grid house. They got delayed. They were supposed to start this spring. A lot of reasons beyond their control that they got delayed, but they are ready now, and so Dan will probably be spending quite a bit of time this fall, hopefully helping him get that dried in before it gets cold, so they at least can finish the inside after it gets cold out. So busy this fall, and it's all exciting, busy stuff. So we're looking forward to it, definitely. So that's what we have in store coming up for the next several months. Just lots of busyness, lots of work, hard work, getting ready for winter, a lot of family events and such. So we appreciate you guys joining us, and we certainly appreciate all of you as viewers and all of your comments. So let's go make some cat food. Okay, so I know that there's only 4 things in here that have bones in them. That's the squirrel. So I'm going to double check that everything's bone free before I put it in the food processor. But I'm just going to stick all of this in here. Just trying to find my bones. There's another one. Most of the meat's cooked. The sweet potatoes got really mushy, but all of this broth is going to end up going back in there anyway. I probably should have just cooked the squirrel separately. It would have made it a whole lot easier than trying to pick out one little section of bones. We're just gonna get that in there. Keep that squirrel separate so I can. I'm gonna see how this batch does first. I'm gonna take some broth so it gets nice and soupy in here. See how this blends up. Okay. I gotta find my cover thing. My fear is that the chicken gizzards would be a little bit too hard. Oh, that's a good consistency right there. Let me show you what that looks like. It just looks like ground up roast beef. It's nice and cooked. So I'm going to take this, put it in my bowl. And then at the end, what I'm going to do is just add a lot more broth to the ground up meat, and then make it the consistency of a nice wet cat food. And then we'll put it in freezer bags once it's cool, and then freeze it. And I know that defeats the purpose of cleaning out my freezer since I'm putting this right back in my freezer, but it's going to be in a lot more usable state in my freezer, and I'll be pulling it out on a regular basis now instead of just moving it out of the way because it's raw and uncooked and a gigantic blob of uncooked venison. So, and what I do is I usually put enough in a bag for about 3 days worth of food for them. Any longer than that and it's going to be in the fridge too long. So I like to make sure that it's just about 3 days, and then I can get another one out. And they don't get this every morning, most of the time, when I remember to actually get it out. And let me tell you, they let me know when I forget to thaw something out for them. My alarm goes off and they're both pretty much right there waiting. I'm just double checking for any loose bones that may have come out of that squirrel as I'm putting it in. That's probably enough for that. More broth. I know it's cat food, but it actually smells pretty good. I mean, it's just boiled meat and sweet potatoes. Can't go wrong with that. And there we go. So this is what it looks like in here. It's just a really nice consistency. And I'll put more broth in here so it'll be a little bit more moist, but it's a very nice cat food consistency. So I'm gonna just continue all of this. There's more broth left than there is meat in there, but I'm going to get this finished up and we'll see you when we have all of this done. We moved back outside into the outdoor kitchen because it is so hot inside right now. I usually use quart bags. The consistency of this is, it's moist, some pretty good gravy on it. I don't like eating dry meat. I don't know why the cats should have to eat that either. So I do have some extra broth here just in case I get down to the bottom and it's a little bit drier. I can add a little bit more. But I just try to add it as cleanly as I can into these bags. Like I said, about 3 days worth. And then it's about about good 3 scoops. All the air out of it. And then I freeze them flat on a tray just because when they're flat like this and they freeze like that, it's a lot easier to keep your freezer organized when they're nice and flat. And then I will definitely mark what these are so Dan doesn't accidentally grab something out of the freezer and end up getting cat food. So I'm going to finish getting these bagged up, and then I'll probably wipe the bags off before I put them in the freezer. And they're a little bit warm yet, so I'll probably let them cool off too for a little while. And that is all I do for my cats. Just lay it nice and flat, get all the air out of it. And I'll just put this whole tray right into the freezer. And then once they're frozen, then you can move them around a lot easier, and I take my tray back. I gotta get one of those little stands that helps you fill a bag. But this will last us quite a while. I mean, this pot is a 3-gallon pot, and it was, I pull it full up to there. And I got the bees coming in here. Good thing Dan's not here. So thanks for joining us today. I hope I encouraged you to make your own pet food and make the most of everything and be a good steward of everything you've been given. We'll see you next time.